Today we're going to talk about the one thing I did at Carolina Carnage that caused me to come home injured. As I said, we're going to talk about one decision I made that contributed to me getting injured in the Tier 1 fights in the men's 5-on-5 and probably the 12-on-12s as well. Before we do that, I do want to talk about the sponsor for today's video, and that is Canadian Boart. Canadian Boart makes amazing weapons for our sport. They sponsor this channel, which I am greatly appreciative of. Canadian Boart will give you 10% off your order. Falchions, axes, greatswords, whatever you're having them make, we're ordering off their website. You just have to message them ahead of time, link in the description down below, saying you came from Woodchuck Night, and they'll give you 10% off, and that is pretty awesome. Our other sponsor is me. Hey, you should buy my hat or other cool stuff from my website, linked down below. Help support the channel. So talking about what happened at Carolina Carnage and what caused me to get injured. So it's kind of a funny story, I guess, on a small adjustment I made, one little thing that you can do to make things a little bit different and the consequences from those actions. So prior to Carolina Carnage, when putting all my equipment together, repairing my helmet and all that, I've been putting it on for fit, and it just felt like my eye line was a little bit low. Like I had to lean back a little bit to clearly see out of the eye holes here in this nasal, or in the nasal with it, right? So what I did is I added an additional piece of foam to the top of my helm. So I'm going to go in and literally just pull that out right now. It's not sewn, it's not anti-concussion. It was just something to, on top of the other foam, just to raise the helmet lining a little bit. And this is it. This little piece of foam, right? So I put this little piece of foam in there. You can see it's been bent around stuff the shape of my helmet head. And this was just to raise it up a little bit. And I put my helmet back on and felt it, felt fine, felt comfortable and all that. And then I went to the event and started fighting. And through the first day, I found myself continually fighting from a really bad position. So I felt like my head was constantly being grabbed more easily than I'm used to. And I just couldn't figure it out, right? So I left that day with a really sore neck, really tight, all up in here, being pulled and yanked on. And then, so, day 2 happened, and, I actually got a massage from someone. There was someone at the event that was a licensed massage therapist, and they actually gave me a massage and, loosened stuff up. That was great. It was awesome. And day 2 happened. I felt a little bit, felt fine, a little tight, but, your neck gets sore and tight after fights anyway. And then the last round of the 5s that we were in, I believe it was the last round against Ordo, I got myself in a really bad position where I bent all the way over, head all the way down, and was just fighting from my neck, basically, to survive, which I thankfully did. My team came, I escaped out, we won the round, and that's actually took bronze and all that. So that's great. But I spent the whole tournament going, what is happening? Why do people keep getting my head and grabbing me in positions that I'm not used to? Now, on one hand, the talent level at this event in the Tier 1 is super high. They're the best fighters. That's supposedly it's for Tier 1, right? The top teams. So I expect them to be more skilled at putting me in bad positions, and my job's to counter and put them in bad positions, etc. But even with that said, I was like, is it really that every fighter has got that much better and I just regressed? Or am I doing something differently? And I was analyzing the rail, because the rail's a little higher than I used to. We had the tabletop, was I positioning myself differently? Was I, making mistakes in checking the field too often when I should have been focused on my opponent? And honestly, I couldn't figure it out until I started seeing photos that people were taking me to the event. And in those photos, my head is leaned way forward, going into the round. So as I'm walking around, I'm walking my head forward. Versus how I normally fight. And I'll put a picture up here of me leaning forward, right? You can see how far forward my head angle is, even just moving into the fight, versus how I normally stand in my normal armor, a normal fight, right? Which is, I'll show right here. So you can clearly see there's a difference, and it occurred to me afterward, the difference was this piece of foam. I literally raised my eye line in a way where I thought that I was leaning back all the time. I think my head was actually in a good neutral position. And when I raised it, I leaned forward to see out of that eye line. And because of that, I was literally leaning in, putting my head forward instead of head over shoulders over feet is the general stance you want for balance. And instead I was I was off balance, and I was literally saying, "Here, opponent, would you like to grab my head?" Which explains for me a little bit why I was fighting from such a negative stance and position all the time. Something so silly as this little tiny round piece of foam, adjusting it for what I thought would be better comfort and eyesight and all that so I could keep my head, actually caused me to fight in a bad spot and be torquing on my neck. Now, it turns out what I did is I pulled a bunch of stuff in my neck. I got all locked up, which is causing spasms and other things. So I've been going to a chiropractor and getting that checked out and going to PT. I've had neck stuff in the past, and I re-aggravated it again, essentially. Now, there's always a risk to getting your neck torqued around when you're fighting, and you have these giant helmets on your head, and people are grabbing and pulling you on, and you're fighting back. And you ideally want to be fighting with your core and your base and not your neck. So you want to be getting to a squat stance and standing up instead of trying to leverage up with just like your neck and muscles and upper shoulder and all that. But reality is sometimes you're in a bad spot and you're trying to survive so your team can help you, and that will happen. What shouldn't happen is you spend the entire tournament in that spot, especially when my literal job is to stay alive on that rail and be a threat to the opponent and not be someone who's like just basically fighting defensively. So that's it. I wanted to make that video and talk about it. So at this point, I'm in recovery for some stuff. I'm back to full training, but I'm currently not fighting while I get all this stuff sorted out. I'm still a little bit stiff up in there. I have a hard time picking my head all the way up. It'll get better. That is part of fighting sports, is you will get injured, and I got injured. So, when I came back, I literally couldn't move my head at all. I couldn't do I'm still kind of a little bit mobile. I got some more to go on it. But it was a lot of it because I made a simple mistake. I adjusted my helmet in a way that put me at a disadvantage. So what's the lesson here? One, this piece of foam is gone. I'm never putting that piece of foam back on my helmet. It was working just fine before. It's going to stay just fine, and I'll keep fighting the same way as I was before. The second thing, though, is to really take the time to analyze your results and your strategies after a fight. Watch video, look at pictures, try to figure out what you did well or what mistakes you made. So that's not the only mistake I made. I definitely made some footwork mistakes. I made a couple bad choices. Every tournament's going to have things you could have done better. That's a given. But sometimes it's something as simple as that. You make an adjustment, and that adjustment doesn't work. I've seen people do it with their greaves. They mess around with their greaves, and they realize that they have a hard time walking because the front of the greave's digging into the top of their foot or right below their sabaton. It's not set up right. So, the lessons are, one, I did that adjustment last minute. I honestly didn't think it would be a problem. I didn't think it through. I didn't think, well, maybe I should, spend some time running around in this helmet and see what it feels like. I'll be honest, I don't know if I would have noticed, because I didn't notice for the whole first day. I thought it felt right, and it was I looked at photos. But, there are little mistakes that we make, and how do we grow from them? So, analyze, see what you did wrong, see what you can improve. Don't add foam in your helmet that makes you lean forward so people can grab your head. Seems like, I'm not the best strategist, but I think giving people my head to snap me down or put me in headlocks or other things is probably not the way to win most matches, to fight from, a huge disadvantage. But anyways, you do what you can, and now I know, and now I can go back to fighting the way my helmet was working before for literal years before I thought I needed to adjust it. A couple things I didn't want to talk about real quick because I didn't share in my last video talking about Carolina Carnage overall. I forgot to mention the awesome prizes. So Boart Tech gave prizes to the winning teams, men's and women's, for fives. I don't know what they gave for singles or if they gave anything because I wasn't really part of that. But this is the polearm head that the Executioners won for taking bronze in the fives. And I was lucky enough that my Captain Cat gave it to me and told me to take it home. We have to kind of share these prizes. We can make it a team prize or individual, so I'm going to half this up and have a really cool polearm that I will get to use someday. So that's a really cool thing, and thank you for Boart Tech for giving these prizes away. It makes eventually fun when you can come home with something like this. The other thing I wanted to share is I just thought it'd be cool to share the medals. So here's the medals we got. I'm going to do a close-up on these because you can't see them. I'll put a picture here. And in that picture is also a sticker from, I think, the Northern Wolves were giving these out. They're the English team. They had a Embrace the Violence sticker. So this is the bronze for men's 5s and the silver for men's 12s that the Executioners won. The Executioners won this one along with the Canadians Northblood. The Canadian team, sorry. I get Northblood is Canadian, Northern Wolves is English. So the Northern Wolves were the ones with the sticker. The Northblood, and it was the Canadian team that fought with us for 12. So I think I got it all sorted. There's a lot of teams that have very similar names and a lot of teams that have different reds, and it gets a little confusing. I do always like to feel like the Executioner is black and white, and our own name is a little bit distinct and been around a long time. So cool medals. I just like showing these. I did like the art on these a lot. I thought they were unique and better than just getting, a first place or a third place number on nothing that you're going to remember. So it's nice to hang these up along with all the other medals that I have. So that's, just really cool to have them. Thank you for Boart Tech, and that is my lesson for you today. Make sure you check your gear, make sure you pay attention to mistakes, and if something feels really weird, take some moments and analyze it. I think the only thing I could have really done differently was after day one, really figured out, and I did try. I asked my teammates, we talked about it, people said, hey, you look like you're fighting weird. I said, I can't figure it out, and it was literally, I think, the second or third fight in the 12s where I was adjusting my helmet, and I was as I looked up, I realized I was leaning forward, and I was oh, something's weird there. And at that point, I pulled the foam out at that point and fought the rest of that, the last fight, I think, without it. But that did make a difference. So there's your lesson for today, and this little mistake, this little tiny piece of white garbage foam is what caused me to get injured. So don't do that. Don't get hurt. Like, subscribe, follow. Those are good things. I'm the Woodchuck Knight. Thanks for watching my page, and let me know what videos you'd like to see next.